DeShaun Watson getting paid, getting absolutely paid. 4-year, $156 million extension. He will now be in Houston for the next 6 years. And more importantly, just behind Patrick Mahomes, who signed that massive $500 million total value contract a few months ago. DeShaun Watson is now the second highest paid quarterback in all the NFL. All the NFL. Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Drew Brees, Matt Ryan, any highly paid quarterback that's out there. Ben Roethlisberger. DeShaun Watson is above all of them except Patrick Mahomes. So that just begs the question. We'll keep it very nice and simple here. Is DeShaun Watson worth the money? Is he worth getting the second highest paid quarterback tag? Is he worth that money? Is he worth that hype? To me, the answer is yes. The answer is absolutely yes. I love this deal from the Texans. I think DeShaun is absolutely worth the money, and I have a few reasons why. Number one, does any quarterback in the NFL honestly do more with less? We talked about Nick Nurse a few weeks ago, why I thought he was the best coach currently in the NBA, and one of my reasons for that was because of all the success he had with the little talent he had. He's done more with less, especially this year, with that Raptors team than any coach to me in the NBA. I will put DeShaun Watson in that same category for quarterbacks. Has any quarterback done more with less weapons? He had DeAndre Hopkins, a bona fide number one elite wide receiver, don't get me wrong. But he had crap behind him. He had nothing behind him. You had Will Fuller, who is talented. I like Will Fuller. I watched him a lot at Notre Dame. He can take the top off the defense. His issue is he plays 7 games a year. Will Fuller plays 2 games, and he always gets hurt right after a big game. He'll have 5 catches, 100 yards, 2 touchdowns, boom, gets hurt with a hamstring injury, out for the next 4 weeks. So you could pencil Will Fuller in for 7 games a year. So he can't stay healthy. The tight ends, flat out stink. The running backs, flat out stink. And the ones that are good get hurt. So outside of DeAndre Hopkins, it's been a mash unit for the last 2 years for DeShaun Watson. Now, okay, you're already playing with basically one hand tied behind your back because your weapons aren't great. They can't stay healthy. Now, let's put both hands tied behind your back because guess what? Let's take DeAndre Hopkins, the only reliable, healthy, durable wide receiver you have on the team. Let's get him out of here. Screw it. Trade him. Get his ass out of here. Let's bring in David Johnson, a running back who can't stay healthy. Perfect, just what the Texans need. Let's sign Brandon Cooks, a wide receiver that can't stay healthy. Perfect, just what the Texans need. And now you go into 2020 with the wide receiving core of Will Fuller, Brandon Cooks, Kenny Stills. I'm putting the over-under right now of those 3 being on the field and being healthy at the same time for 3 games. 3 games. I'll give a 3 out of 16. Those 3 are suited up at the same time in the same game. Kenny Stills is the most durable, but Brandon Cooks has a history of concussions. And again, Will Fuller has so many soft tissue injuries that I lose count of. So his weapons he's had to throw to have been brutal. Brutal. That's not even the worst part. The offensive line he's been behind since he's got to the Texans in 2017 has been atrocious. Just absolutely awful. The biggest, they're talking about opening up the floodgates. That's what DeShaun Watson, every time he gets a snap, that's what he's been dealing with. He's been sacked, think about this, the last 2 years. So let's see. Quick math here. So he's played 16 games, obviously 2 years in a row. So that's 32 games. 32 plus 3 playoff games. He's played 35 games the last 2 years. I think he's missed a game or 2. But let's just say 35 at the most, right? The most games he's played, 35 games the last 2 years. He's been sacked these last 2 years 111 times. Think about that. 111 sacks he's had the last 2 years. This offensive line is atrocious. And they are so desperate that they not only traded a large draft capital for Laramie Tunsil to bring him over for left tackle, they paid him basically, Tunsil held them over the barrel. They overpaid to make sure he stays there. So Laramie Tunsil's decent left tackle. I wouldn't say the best left tackle in the game, not by a long stretch. So you're overpaying him. You're piecing the middle of the line together. And it doesn't seem to be any better this year. So 111 sacks the last 2 years his offensive line has held up, has been blocking for DeShaun Watson. So to me, he's done more with less than any quarterback in the NFL because he still had success. Despite no one being behind DeAndre Hopkins, despite no one staying healthy, and despite the fact that their offensive line can't block for him, literally can't block for him, He's won double-digit games both years. He's won the division both years. And they won a playoff game this past year. Speaking of winning a playoff game, my number 2 reason why he's worth the money, he's a flat-out winner. He's a flat-out winner. Let's go back to college. Because he performs best on the biggest stage. That's where these players make their money. That's where having a game changer at the quarterback position really makes the difference. 2015 in Alabama, at Clemson, playing Alabama in the national title game. Nick Saban's defense having a great year. What does DeShaun Watson do? Throw for 405 yards, 4 touchdowns in the loss. Nick Saban, we saw something from Nick Saban that we've never seen before. Fear. He was so afraid of DeShaun Watson in that Clemson offense. He knew they couldn't stop DeShaun Watson. Then what did they do? They onside kicked the ball. They caught Clemson by surprise. They onside kicked the ball because they realized we're going to basically have to outscore them. And the less DeShaun Watson has the ball, the better. They got the onside kick. It worked out for them. Alabama wins that national title. Okay. Tough. You had that great magical season for Clemson. Easy to kind of let down your next year having some disappointment with high expectations. No. What does DeShaun Watson do? Comes back, goes back to the national title game, plays against Alabama and that Nick Saban defense again. And what does he do? He ups his yards, goes from 405 to 420. Throws for 3 touchdowns, including the game-winning pass. He leads the game-winning drive against a Nick Saban-led defense. There was a touchdown with 1 second left to win the national title. Winner. Let's go to the NFL. Admittedly, he struggled in that first playoff game against the Colts. Colts had a good game plan. They corralled him on defense. He couldn't get anything going to score 7 points. Next year, just this past year, he learned from that when the Texans seemed dead in the water against the Bills. I guess one of the best defenses in the NFL. The Bills had one of the best defenses in the NFL last year. And DeShaun Watson single-handedly leads that comeback in the second half. Single-handedly helps the Texans beat the Bills. I think you can make the argument, maybe outside of Patrick Mahomes, no other quarterback with the way that game is going wins that game, leads that comeback. That team was dead. That team was lifeless. And DeShaun Watson made a few plays with his legs, made a few great throws with his arm, and gave that team some juice in an incredible comeback victory. The next week against the Chiefs, let's just say this. He wasn't the reason why they lost. They're up 24-0 in Arrowhead. They weren't the reason why they lost. So when you look at, is a quarterback worth the money? Patrick Mahomes is yes, right? He's an outlier. He's worth every single penny. He's probably worth more than the $500 million that the Chiefs gave him. That contract is going to look very cheap very soon. But outside of that, there's not many quarterbacks that are even close to that level that are worth that amount of money. But DeShaun Watson is, to me. You look at guys that are going to come up next. Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, both on the pressers getting big paydays. What's the one area they struggled in so far? What's the one area they haven't really been able to overcome in the playoffs? Dak really hasn't been great in the playoffs. Lamar Jackson has struggled. He's 0-2. Lamar Jackson has laid the 2 biggest eggs of his career in both playoff games, against the Chargers 2 years ago and against the Titans last year. DeShaun Watson plays at his best when the stakes are highest. That's a guy you pay. That's a guy you pay a lot of money to. And third, so he's a winner. To me, he does more with less. And finally, being so young, going into his 4th year now, but 3rd year fully healthy, there's still room for improvement. So despite all the success he's had, there's still areas he can improve. He could still become a better pocket passer. He could still work on his reads a little bit better. So if he's already this good, with room for growth, room to grow, room to get better, what's the ceiling on a guy like DeShaun Watson, honestly? What's the ceiling for him once he actually gets a head coach, or I really should say a general manager, a real general manager in there that actually wants to surround him with pieces? Instead of taking them away, he adds them. What's that going to be like? So to me, there's so much room for improvement to where you're still getting a deal because he's going to only get better. So I look at DeShaun Watson. His ability to improve, he plays the best when the stakes are highest, and he does more with less. This is the type of guy you pay. This is the type of guy you make one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL. And you've heard in this show, I've been very hesitant to give Dak Prescott $40 million a year. To me, I don't think he's worth it. I think he is a sum of what's around him. DeShaun Watson is the exact opposite of that. While Dak has one of the best offensive lines in football, a great wide receiving core, a great running back, great skill positions around him. DeShaun Watson has none of that. DeShaun Watson has none of that and still has more success than Dak. The numbers might be a little bit better for Dak, sure. How about the wins? How about the playoff experience? How about the reason for teams winning? I can make the argument DeShaun Watson has had a hell of a bigger impact, has led to directly more wins than Dak Prescott can. So that's a guy I'm willing to give $40 million to compared to Dak Prescott, compared to even Lamar Jackson. So I love this contract by the Texans, and this is coming from a Colts fan who has to see DeShaun Watson twice a year now for the next 6 years at least. So I'm nervous because this is a guy you can't really game plan for, you can't control. And again, the biggest knock on DeShaun Watson so far is that his weapons are being taken away from him. That's it. So this is a move I absolutely love. This is absolutely the kind of quarterback you pay. So I love what the Texans are doing. Lock up DeShaun Watson, and good for DeShaun Watson keeping it only at 4 years. He's going to get 4 years, just about $40 million a year. Guess what? He's going to be back on the market in 4 years. And those salary caps are going to go up because those TV contracts are expiring soon, and they are going to get re-upped, and there's going to be a lot of cash heading into the NFL, similar to what the NBA, when their NBA contracts ended a few years ago. We saw the salary cap balloon. Remember when the Warriors were taking off, and that's why they're able to sign Kevin Durant? The same thing's going to happen in the NFL. And pretty soon, that contract DeShaun Watson has is not only going to look cheap, he's going to get back on the market in his prime, and he's going to have to renegotiate another deal with the Texans. So I absolutely love what Houston is doing. This is the kind of guy you pay. So I'm curious for you. I love it. But in your mind, is DeShaun Watson worth the money? Again, he's the second highest paid quarterback in the NFL now, behind only Patrick Mahomes. He's getting $40 million a year, so he's higher than Drew Brees, Russell Wilson, Ben Roethlisberger, Tom Brady, any great quarterback in the NFL that you think is at the top and should be in that elite category. Again, outside of Patrick Mahomes, DeShaun Watson is making more than. To me, I love it. He's worth every penny. He's the kind of quarterback you pay.